What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video on my Subaru rally build. So today we're going to be continuing with the cage construction. So a few days ago I posted a video on the main hoop construction, so if you're interested in this build, or if you plan on making a cage yourself and you want to see how the rules are outlined for the main hoop construction, or just generally how to make a main hoop, go check that video out. But today we're going to be continuing off that and making the rocker boxes for the cage feet of the main hoop to actually sit on. So in the FIA rulebook, it specifically states for all plating for the cage feet to mount to, it needs to be at least an 1/8 inch thick and have the dimensions of a minimum of 3 by 4 inches. So that means you have to have at least 12 square inches anywhere that you plan on plating for the cage to attach to. So like I said, I'm going to be making boxes for the cage to actually stand on. You don't have to make boxes for the cage to stand on. You can just plate the floor and mount the cage directly to that. There's a few reasons why you'd actually want to make boxes over just plating into the floor, and it's really just personal preference. So one of the main reasons that I'm doing it is it elevates it off the floor. So some of the areas on the top of the cage are really difficult to get at because you want a tight fitting cage. Well, the tighter fitting cages have junctions at the top that have to still be welded all 360 degrees around. So those bars are really hard to get at unless you have a way to either drop down the cage, which is why you make boxes, so you can pull the boxes out and then the cage drops those 3 or 4 inches that you actually made the boxes, and then you can get at the top. Or you can remove the roof, and there's another option where if you actually plate the floor, you remove the plate, drill a hole through the floor, and drop the cage straight down. So it's pretty much all personal preference on how you want to make it and how best you will be able to fully weld the cage. So there's another benefit for running boxes for your cage to sit on. So on the forward hoop portion, where it's actually going to sit in the chassis, if you run boxes, it's easier to make another rule. So the rule is all junctions, so the sill bar that runs along here, the lower door bar that would run along here, and the A-pillar support bar that's going to come down over here, and the forward lateral hoop all have to tie in within 4 inches of where the cage is actually going to be plated to the car. By elevating it up those 4 or 5 inches that you need to get above the actual rocker panel, it's going to be easier to weld the sill bar as well as the door bar and the A-pillar support bar and the actual lateral to the car. But all of that is preference. So if you can make it work by plating it to the floor, and you can get all 4 of them in the same junction within 4 inches, then that's perfect and it'll pass tech as long as it's all fully welded all the way around. Anyway, that's enough talking about it. I need to actually get started on these things. So to make my templates, I'm going to be using CAD. And no, that is not computer aided design. That's going to be cardboard assisted design, because that's all I have available.
You're not funny.
So as you might be able to tell from the camera, the floor kind of is flat right here and then it concaves down. So I kind of want to run that plate right along where it's flat, and then follow suit with the same piece on the top, and then come over the top of the actual rocker panel. All right, now that we have our first template, we're ready to transfer this over to the steel, and then we can get rid of this seam sealer in here and kind of grind down these welds that are going to be in the way to keep this thing from sitting flush. Anyway, so I'm just going to try and scribe both of them on here, cut out one piece and then cut it in half on the diagonal line. That way I can get both pieces knocked out at once. And then just make sure if you do that, leave enough room to where the thickness of your flap disc or whatever you're using to cut it is accounted for. That way you don't come up short on one of the plates. See, the funny thing is I actually have a plasma cutter that would make that so much easier, but I don't have any tips for it right now, so can't use it. But yeah, got this cut off, just got to cut it in half, and then we got our 2 sides. All right. See how it fits. Fitment is pretty good. I got to get that seam sealer out of there before I can fully check it. And then once we get the seam sealer out of there, got to grind down these welds, and then I'll be able to sit flat. So this is like one of the best ways to remove seam sealer from pretty much any joint that you can't get at. Just heat it up. You don't want to set it on fire. Just heat it up and then scrape it out. Because there's a lot of really hard to reach areas. If you've watched my seam welding videos, you've seen me use it on those areas. It definitely makes it a little bit easier because it'll really soften it up, and then you can just like kind of fling it out of there with a screwdriver. Okay, so the fitment on the plate is pretty good right now. I think I'm ready to move on to the next step. So now I need to make the piece that's going to sit in the front, and it's going to come up to the same level as the rocker panel. All right, so I made my first cuts for the triangle piece, just finished clearing all this out and grinding it down. But I was thinking about it some more, and I don't really like that design. It's gonna be a little complicated to get this angle of the rocker panel, especially when it's on a 45-degree angle. And it's going to use a lot of material, so I know I just kind of wasted those because I cut those triangle pieces. Honestly, this isn't too big of a deal. I've got plenty of metal, so instead I'm going to go with a more simple design. And I've got this sweet already sized 3-inch plate, same exact stuff that I have in the large sheet, but this is already sized in 3-inch by, I think it's like 3 feet or something like that. So we're going to use this to make a really simple box design for the same exact area. All right, I think I have it good enough to where I'm going to tack in the top pieces. So I'm just going to build the 3 sides of the box, and then it's going to come off. I'm not actually going to weld it to the car right now, just these 3 sides, and then I can pull it out and I can fully weld those 3, and then I can tack the plate to the... All right, first piece tacked into place. Now we got to come up with a way to do the contour of the rocker panel. All right, so initial fit up is actually pretty close. That's kind of surprising. I just got to get rid of a little section that kind of bubbles out a little bit more, and it should be able to sit more flush, but I already barely have any gaps, and I would be able to fill all of them anyway because they're pretty small. Okay, I am happy with that fitment. As you can see, there's a little bit of gap here and there, but seriously, it's absolutely nothing that I can't fill in or that it wouldn't get filled in with weld. So I'm really happy with how that fits. Now I just need to cut it down to the right size. All right, I got it mocked up with magnets right now, and honestly, I think the fitment is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. It's all lined up. So I'm just gonna get it square with the top 2 pieces and tack them into place, and then we'll get a final test fitment. I actually use my welding table for once, even though it's about time to clean the garage again. I think it's getting pretty bad in here. It'd help if I can get rid of some Subaru parts. So if you need any interior parts, like a sunroof, which is right here, or a headliner, yeah, let me know, and you probably get them for free if you pay shipping. And this rocker box is done. I'm happy with the fitment. As you can see, it's super tight to the actual bench. Super tight through here. Pretty good fitment all around. So yeah, this box is done. Now I just need to start on that box, which I'm going to save for tomorrow. So I just made a quick change with kind of how I wanted to make these. So initially I was planning on making the plate that goes on the floor only a 2x3. So that's exactly the same size as the box. I'm not really a fan of that because then I would have had to weld all along this to weld it to the floor. And then the box pretty much would have sat on that weld bead and then I'd have to weld it to that. That doesn't make much sense to me. So I'm just gonna go about 1/2 inch more on the length and width of the plate that's going to the floor. That way I have plenty of material that I can weld the box to later on. And it's just gonna look a little bit better anyway. So the plate's cleaned up and it fits really well in here. I just had to get rid of a little bit of the corner so that it would clear where the sheet metal actually starts to come up. So now I'm just going to bend this corner down just a little bit so it actually contours a little bit more to the floor and I'll be able to like weld it completely and I don't have to bridge a huge gap. All right, so the plate is tacked in there right now. The box fits really well. That's good. So next step, I'm going to pull the boxes out, grind down these tacks, and then fully weld up the seams. That way we don't have to worry about these. And then grab them back in here and tack them into place. That way we know exactly where we need to trim the main hoop and then get that thing back in here and see how it all looks. So I just stitched up the back side of these plates. I just did like an 1-inch long stitch on the back side of each of them. Now I need to go through and grind down each of these tacks. That way I can have a nice consistent even weld all the way along the edge. Okay, so the only thing left to do, now that these are welded up, tack them into the car, and then we'll be able to get the main hoop trimmed up and see how it fits. It fits, and I didn't get rid of too much. Yay! That's good. I was definitely sketched out having to remove some material from this because it was a little bit too much. So definitely be careful with that. If you have an 1/8 inch plate, make sure you only remove an 1/8 inch material. I think I removed just a tiny bit too much because it was tighter before. Honestly, I probably just should have taken the grinder to it a little bit at a time until it fit perfectly. But whatever, it's close enough. It's still just as tight as it was. It touches here, 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 and here. Kind of messed up on the bend over here, so it doesn't touch perfectly over there. It's got a little bit of a gap, but I'm probably going to plate the side of the beauty pillar right there just so I can get it to touch, and then gusset it as well, because gussets look cool. Well, that is all I've got for this one. The progress is slow, mostly because I'm taking my time with it. I want to make sure I get everything right, and I don't waste too much material because I'm not made of money. This budget is... Well, that is all I've got for this one. I'm happy with the progress that I'm making. It is moving a little bit slower, and it's probably taking me a lot longer than someone that's been doing this for a long time. But I'm happy with the progress I'm making and the outcome so far. I'm super happy with the main hoop, and these things look great. I got to make the front ones, but next step is going to be the forward lateral bars, which are going to be tricky in their own because I got to figure out how to do offset bending. That'll be fun. Well, like I said, that's all I've got for this one. I appreciate you guys watching. If you stuck around this long, make sure you subscribe if you actually like what you see and you're not already subscribed. I will be posting quite regularly on this thing, so definitely follow along as the build progresses.